And welcome back to the behind the scenes series, Crowning Jules, where today we'll be covering the producing side of things, whereas in the last episode we covered the acting side. So go back and check that episode out. We got some interesting behind the scenes insights on the acting portion of things. So today we'll be covering the producing side. And like I said, this is going to be a interesting one because a lot of people don't know exactly what producers do. And I have my good friend Lucas Miles and Edgar Struble here to kind of give us some insights, not only to what producers do, but in particular on this film. So I'll just kind of start off with you guys. Why don't you go ahead and just kind of tell us what it is that producers do?
You know anything about that?
We drink coffee, we drive around in a golf cart. Tell us what to do, it really, for me, like being a producer is really about being a problem solver.
Sure.
And ideally, if you do the job right, you minimize problems ahead of time. And that's what pre-production is for. But inevitably, I think the role, and there's obviously different types of producers. You have line producers and executive producers and kind of showrunner producers that are there. And on some smaller productions, at times you're wearing multiple of those hats. But, it's to assemble the team, to see the future as much as possible in terms of what could go wrong, to anticipate that, to plan accordingly, and the things that are unforeseeable that you didn't see, to be able to have the skill set of addressing those things, to minimize, the impact that those might have on the production, and ultimately to see the show through from start to finish, from conception to distribution. And so there's a lot that goes into it, and everybody kind of takes on a different role. We had, six or seven producers on this project, and everybody had a little bit different role. But yeah, so that's kind of maybe general to kind of get the conversation started. But I love producing. We both love producing. And, it's just a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And we'll kind of go over it more in the next episode, but you actually co-directed and produced, so that's going to be kind of an interesting thing to talk about in the next episode. But let me ask you guys, how is it that you, as producers, you guys kind of find the right project? So how do you go about choosing projects?
We, I think we arm wrestled or thumb wrestled for this.
Lucas brought this project in. He had seen the Labadie twins, the two stars of this movie, in a previous movie that he produced. And he found a script that he thought would be suitable for them to star in, which was this Crowning Jules script. And then we had met a few months prior to shooting this, and he asked me to come on board to help him with it because I actually had a little more experience and a little more gray hair than he has.
Maybe not after production. That's why I have the hat on right now, covering it all.
So this particular project was already chosen. But having said that, we have some other projects that are in the wings that we're discussing right now. And I think that's a real important part of the process because it's got to resonate in order for both of us to be, on board and involved, invested in it. It's got to resonate with both of us.
I think that some other things that we talk about a lot in our conversations is, does it fit within our value system? Does it bring value to the audience? Are we contributing to anything? Are we inspiring people? Is it something that's going to bring families closer together? Or maybe inspire people to fulfill their dreams? Those things. We're also looking at, is it producible at the budget level that we're at? There's a lot of things that sound really great and wonderful to make as a film, but you can't do it without $20 million or $100 million or whatnot. And so, we're looking for projects that fit also into a business model. And that's why I think a lot of times filmmakers don't know a lot about producing, is because they're so focused on the artistic side of it. They easily get over their heads in production, not recognizing that, if you have 65 locations in a script, it's going to cost a lot of money and be really, a lot of wear and tear on the cast and crew versus a script that maybe has 6 locations in it. And so we look at all those things, kind of compile that together, pros and cons. And then at the end of the day is this a movie we want to make? Are we going to get into this and go, man, when is this going to be done? because we're gonna have to watch this thing more than anybody else in the entire project.
You're not gonna want to watch it by the end of it.
Yes, it's still something I want to watch after the 200th time I've seen it.
Right, exactly. And I think that's interesting. One of the things that you said about sometimes the artistic elements taking over, and that's kind of where the interesting part for the producers come in, because they kind of have to look at things, step back and let's look at this a little bit more logically. We got to make money. So I think that's kind of interesting, is seeing that kind of make sure that it's a good movie and at the same time is feasible in the sense of, how everything's being done. So I think that's kind of one way of.
There's the illustration as a really in any sort of artistic role, and it's kind of a crass illustration in some ways, but they'll say like, are you willing to kill the baby? Your baby specifically.
Right.
If I get so invested into writing a particular scene, when it comes down to it, when everybody on the team is looking at that scene and going, that just doesn't work, am I able to set that aside? Am I able to get rid of that and see the project as a whole rather than investing in these individual portions? And it's really the job of the producers to be able to make some of those calls for the project as a whole. We're the ones that kind of sit through this from start to finish, and obviously with the director, the direction has a major role in that as well. But sometimes you're the good guys, and sometimes you have to be the bad guys and be the ones to say that, look, hey, on behalf of the entire project, this is what we have to do.
Right. No, and I think that's,
I let Edgar always be the bad guy. So.
You got to have that good cop, bad cop role, right? So kind of to touch up on a little bit more of how you guys choose your projects. I know you guys said that you saw the script, you liked the script, and then obviously you knew the twins, but was there anything else that kind of made this stand out for you, this particular film?
The script was really excellent, written by a gal named Shay Fontana from Santa Clarita, California, where
we're at right now.
Where we're at right now. She's an animated writer for Nickelodeon.
She's done everything from Disney to, I think she's done some work for DC and maybe even Marvel for some of their animation series.
This was her first feature film, and we both thought it was very, very clever, and it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's the other thing too that you wouldn't know just from watching the film is that the script was actually originally written for sisters a couple years apart. And so when we converted it to be twins, so I met the twins on the set of one of my other movies, Rodeo Girl with Kevin Sorbo, which is available on Netflix, to make a plug for that. And we had a bunch of extras come in and some featured extras and things, and the twins were two of those people. Now they'd been acting on other projects, they had been working on Nickelodeon pilot and some other things as well. So they had a lot of experience already, and just very quickly, as soon as I saw them, I thought, these two need their own movie. And so, got to know them some. They were the only people on the set that sent me a thank you card, got done, which made them just really stand out.
Yeah.
And I started hunting for this script for them. And everything I could find that had to do with twins was like horror movies. And, it was like, that's all there was.
The Shining.
Yeah. And, it's... the double Shining,
right? Yeah.
And we just couldn't find anything, and so I finally came across this, and I ended up approaching Shay, and she loved the idea to convert it for twins, and so we worked together on that. But she really brought the creativity and the magic that made it, what it is as a screenplay.
And that's super interesting that you said that too, because I think sometimes a lot of the general audience just assumes that, everything is the way it is. It's all a plan. It all sticks to the plan, and then it's the end goal. People probably won't realize sometimes they completely, work with the scripts, change the scripts to kind of fit a different, maybe, a certain idea, kind of like what you guys did. In this case, it kind of was an easy transition, but, with a little bit of a different, twist on it. So that's pretty cool. So how many other films have you guys produced, and what knowledge did you carry going into this film?
Well, I've produced two films prior to this. They were both produced in Michigan. One was called Mickey Matson and the Copperhead Treasure, and the other one was Pirates Code: The Adventures of Mickey Matson. And they were directed by Harold Kronk, who went on to direct God's Not Dead 1 and 2.
I see.
Huge films.
Yeah.
And this was my third film.
Yeah.
Lucas's second, I believe.
Yeah, second feature, and then I had kind of a longer TV pilot that we worked on as well.
So we weren't old pros at this by any stroke of imagination, and we made a lot of mistakes during the course of this. But the good news is we ended up with a very, very watchable, enjoyable picture that we're both real proud of.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
and it's we have the 6 or 7 projects or whatnot between us, and we got probably 3 or 4 others in the queue that we're looking at and trying to figure out which one is next now. I mean, it's really opened up some really cool doors. But we both have kind of coming into this other experience related to production, but not necessarily direct with film as much. I mean, Edgar comes from he's a mainstay in the music business. I mean, I'm sure all of your viewers know what the American Music Awards are. Edgar's the director of music of the American Music Awards, the Academy of Country Music Awards, and the Billboard Music Awards. And so he's bringing into this all of his experience really in music production, which is very similar skill set to what would happen in film production. There's less golf carts involved, but other than that, it's very, very similar.
Right.
And then for me, my background, I've done coaching for artists and musicians and actors for a number of years. I managed a recording artist, Joanna Beasley. I'll give her a plug. Really tremendous recording artist that was on American Idol second season. Managed her for about 6 years or so. Which management is very similar to production in the sense that it's constant problem solving and figuring out how do we take this to the next level. And so you kind of bring in these vicarious skill sets that all really just ideally create this great concoction and all of our producers coming into this had their own unique backgrounds that, one of our guys, Brian Harrington, I'll give, Brian's just incredible guy. He was actually going to be on here with us tonight, wasn't able to make it. But Brian comes from a political background of helping out to run campaigns. And so, he's worked for, several winning candidates and in California and national candidates as well. And, and so the same skill sets that it takes to run a campaign are very similar. You have to have food, you got to have bathrooms, you got to have, the talent, all that stuff goes into it. And, there's so much that's similar.
And that, like I said, I mean, that's really an interesting part of it is that a lot of people, like I said, they don't understand what it is that all goes into this, but it's cool that you guys kind of all were like a puzzle and you kind of put together all these little different, skill sets that you all had. And I think it's interesting to see that maybe not everybody always just jumps straight into it. There's a lot of skill sets that kind of help with producing in general that maybe you guys kind of gained along the way. So that's really cool.
And Christian, I know you've heard me say this before, but I always tell people the shortcut that nobody knows about in order to get into the industry is producing. And, everybody tries to go, what you hear from people is go be a PA for free and then slowly work your way. And eventually, you're
holding a coffee runner, right?
Yeah, you're a coffee runner and you're holding the boom mic eventually. And, you're slowly working your way up.
That's viable.
It is. It's totally viable. But for the right personality, for the right skill set, there is a path to what I call fast track.
That was my path.
Yeah.
And yours too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
Recruited by Harold Crump to produce that first movie, and I'd never produced a movie before. I didn't know what a grip was.
Yeah. When I did Rodeo Girl, Joel Reisig, I called him because I was coaching Sophie, who was the lead actress for Rodeo Girl.
Right.
And not doing acting coaching, but more kind of developing her as her platform coaching.
Sure.
And which is something I still take on kind of, a select number of clients. And I called Joel and I just said, hey, if you're working with Sophie and you need anything, let me know. He goes, well, actually, we're looking for another producer. And, have you ever done that before? And I go, well, I've produced music videos. And he goes, oh, it's the same thing, only longer, which I was telling him was a total lie, but it was enough to get me in.
Sure. And
I don't regret it. I mean, it was a really awesome experience. And, but I think that, the commodity that somebody can be as a producer that is probably the most needed, especially in independent films, is the ability to find money. And the ability to
wisely use that money.
Wisely use that money, yes. So the financial side of that, is so important. So somebody with good business skills that, maybe I mean, I have a small cameo in Crowning Jules.
I saw that. Yeah.
Oh, I do. Hopefully you liked it.
I did.
The
One of my favorite parts.
yeah. It was a lot
that was a second of like, it was funny because there was a scene, kind of not to give away too much, but there was a scene earlier in the film where there's where the two guys who are stealing the jewels are in the masks. And for a second, I was like, oh, maybe that's who Lucas plays. And then finally, at the end, it's like, oh, this is who Lucas plays. Okay, I see now.
That's funny. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But I mean, as a producer, I can go, hey, you know what? This little small bit part, I want to jump in here and do this. Sure. I just had fun. It wasn't, it didn't make or break the film. It was enough to kind of go, oh, hey, that's me on film. But and we, I just always tell people that if they have a desire to be in the industry, but they have that kind of problem solver skill set, look for an associate producer role or something where you can kind of get your foot in the door. And a lot of opportunities go out. You get to meet the higher level cast and have more contact with them. But you have to have not only the chops to do that, but you have to respect the industry enough to know how to walk through that and to be a benefit to the set rather than just in it for yourself.
Right, definitely. And I think that's a good insight probably for a lot of people who are probably trying to think about the approach. They love films and they don't maybe necessarily know which route they want to take. So I think that's and
don't be afraid to approach a producer and ask them, hey, could I shadow you? There's a movie that just released, Let There Be Light, with Kevin Sorbo, and Sean Hannity was actually the executive producer on that. And I had the opportunity to talk to Sean, here recently about the film. But I went down and I shadowed Kevin for 3 days on that set, at my own expense, my own dime. But just to see, this is a higher level production, millions of dollars went into this project, and, it's bigger than the films that I had worked on in the past. And because I knew Kevin, had a relationship with him, it was a great learning experience for me to be able to watch, Kevin and his wife, Sam, as producers, and Kevin also directed that, do that role. And so I had a lot of takeaways for me. It's ideally in this business, we should all be constantly learning.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's super, super good piece of advice. Well, kind of to tailor more towards the business and marketing side of things, what are some marketing strategies and foresight that you guys kind of brought to the film to kind of help, maximize the success?
That's wide open. And it's really even wider open now with the advent of social media.
Right.
It used to be you'd take your film to a distributor and hope that they could put it out there for you. And we've done that, but we have to augment their efforts also. And Lucas is pretty good at that.
Christian, I've banked everything just on the success of your YouTube show.
Yeah, I think this is going to be it. I think this will be the thing that will do it.
I'm counting on your faithful audience to help us sell hundreds of thousands of copies.
They will spread the word. They will.
We need that to happen. We need that to happen. I really I come from a family that has probably a fair amount of skills in kind of the marketing realm, or at least experience. My brother owns a national branding firm and has worked in branding for years. So I have some kind of vicarious skills in that area. My sister's a designer as well, and both super talented. So I in building a platform, whether it's for yourself, I'm also an author and writer. It's the same skill set that I need to develop my platform as a writer, that I'm developing my platform for a particular film that I'm producing. And so it involves layers. And so I always look to, your base layers are something like a press release, having interviews like what we're doing here, to be able to get the word out, having, appropriate, in today's world, social media ads, utilizing those things, getting people to review the film and write about it on blogs and different film review websites. We submitted it to the Dove organization and won a Dove Award for the film, and so all of that kind of adds to it. We really try to cultivate the relationships with the main cast so that they'll be keen to want to share about it. So we don't over ask that, but I know that people like Kevin Farley and Christy Swanson, and the twins as well will, they're already sharing about it, and they'll be sharing about it when it releases.
Kenton Duty.
Yeah, Kenton Duty, Derek Branch. I mean, we really have a great cast. And we have some great social media warriors, people like Michaela Deal Eppers, who is actually, after producing the film, she just won Mrs. America. And and we'll be competing in Mrs. Universe. And so, she's got a great social media crowd. So she's helping to share this and also not discounting local news in the areas that we're in, to be able to target that. We've had WSBT and Jennifer Copeland there. She's been incredible locally for me in the South Bend market, where it's kind of home base for me and where we actually shot the film. And so there's a lot of rallying around that. So you can never market too much, especially kind of guerrilla creative marketing. You can probably overspend your marketing budget. That's a different thing. But, there's always more ways to get the word out, and recognizing that it's not just about 1 week, especially when it's not a focus on theatrical release. This is an ongoing thing with, platforms like Redbox and VOD, where, we can still be marketing this a month from now, 2 months from now. And so it's building up that kind of, this is a marathon, not a sprint mentality.
Sure.
We want to hit it hard at the start, but really be able to keep some press going on this as long as possible.
And obviously, picking actors like Kevin Farley and Christy Swanson, they're, talented actors, but also in the same token, I'm sure that's probably a part of your strategy too, to kind of, let me bring some recognizable names to this project and,
Yeah. And that's, I do a lot of consulting, and I know Edgar does as well for different people's projects, or I'll have people write me and ask me about, hey, what do you think about this or that? And that's one of the top things that I tell them is, it doesn't matter how good the script is. It doesn't matter how well you shoot it. If nobody knows anybody in your cast, you're probably destined for the festival circuit, which isn't bad, but it may never lead to a return on investment. Mm-hmm. And producer, you can't just think about the artistic quality of the film. That has to be there. That's assumed. But, if we're so focused on that we forget about marketability, then we don't have a repeatable evergreen strategy to producing films. You'll spend, and you're not treating, if you're using investors' money, you're doing the investors a disservice by making a film for $300,000 or $500,000 or $1 million without having without having cast appropriate to the budget level.
Sure.
So you have to, as a producer, go, here's the budget we want to shoot at, and then we need to find casts that are at that level or higher so that we know the return can be there.
Right. Well, I think that's definitely something that's going to be interesting for a lot of people because like I said, it's a very split mentality. A lot of people have a hard time bouncing back and forth between balancing the artistic side and the the side of marketability. Well, just to kind of wrap things up here, just a couple more questions. I'm going to kind of tailor these questions to each of you specifically. So, Edgar, you have a pretty expansive musical background, as we kind of went over a little bit earlier. So, for you bring a lot to the table. So, what was some insights you had? Did you have any insights, like as far as the music aspects of this film or anything along those lines?
Well, one of the things that I was privileged to do was to actually write the underscore for this movie.
Okay.
It kind of at the last minute we thought, yeah, it's something I can do. I've done it before, certainly. And I had really enjoyed that part of it. I also was able to supervise, act as a music supervisor, and incorporate some songs that people had brought to us. One of Lucas's friends and one of the gals he coaches, Cassie Jo Johnson, brought a wonderful song in that we put in the middle of the movie and use it for a whole scene. And then one of the guys that talking about Rocco Beale?
Oh yeah, Rocco. We have a song "Superman" that is actually Derek Brandon's character plays kind of the lead to this rock band, and so. Rocco Beale, who's just a great young artist out here in California, came into the project, and we just found a song of his that we just really love. And so Edgar worked with him in order to place that in the song. Or
Yeah, we shot a whole
film.
scene of kind of a music video in the movie, and then we used that in his music video as well.
So you kind of got a double whammy there with the two.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, to that music stuff, I mean, there's licensing that has to be done. There's a lot of mundane tasks,
Right.
a lot of paperwork, and a lot of begging for.
I give him the boring stuff to do.
Yeah.
Well, that is that's what I mean. Like we said, you guys have a strong team where each of you can kind of fill in whatever role it is you need.
Team is huge. I mean, I joke about that, but I mean, Edgar is much more detail oriented, than I am, and so being able to oversee some of those aspects, especially in working, this is a SAG, this is a union. We have union actors on this, and so it's a SAG film. And, that brings a whole nother level of just
responsibility.
Yeah, responsibility. You have a what they call a signatory, with SAG. It's a contract with SAG that we have to follow, not only for the actor's safety, but also comfort and the that follows everything from pre-production through post-production in terms of how that's handled. And it's really being able to have a team. We kind of have found our roles. We know where we fit. We're comfortable in those things. But we're also able to be there if the other person gets swamped with something or gets underwater a little bit to jump in and help each other.
That's awesome.
Well,
and, it wouldn't be fair to talk about this without, mentioning some of the other producers on the project.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Lisa Varga was incredible.
She saved our butts a couple of times.
Yes, she did. Brian Harrington, Tim Wells, Shane Roby, Jayander Singh, Don Willis, incredible. I have a film I'm working on with Don here coming up called The Penitent Thief. And Don, just an incredible guy. He was involved with me on Rodeo Girl as well. His wife, Julia, was also a producer on this. I know we're going to leave people out. We had a bunch of them.
I'd have to read the credits.
Yeah. Tony Huddy was one that came in. So it was just, an incredible group of people to work with and produce a film with. I'd do it over again. Yeah.
Well, to kind of wrap things up and tie things up, I'm going to aim this question at you, Lucas. So you've had several other, producing roles, kind of like we talked about, Rodeo Girl being one of them. Go watch it on Netflix. And so what was the most challenging part of producing this film?
Oh, man.
Big Jim.
We had one rough location. We won't talk about that one too much, though. There is, and maybe it's, maybe I could talk around that. Producing is, we talked about the details, we talked about marketing, but really what it is in a lot of ways is it's people management and relationship management. And, you're the backstops for the project, whether it be the director, the actors, the location hosts that you're working with. You have to be able to constantly navigate multiple relationships at one time. And sometimes those relationships are in complete opposition to each other. The fact that the director wants to shoot this scene for the 30th time is complete opposition to the investor that says, hey, you guys are pushing the budget, so and you have to find the balance between that to navigate that. Or when the director wants to, keep shooting, but the location host is saying, look, I needed you guys out of here an hour ago, for this project. I got to go home and take my kids to their soccer game. And so, it's like, because we're not shooting on backlots that we have unlimited access to, we're using real world locations. There's a lot of pieces that go into juggling that. And so, I don't know as though any of that was more difficult than another, but the, just that element combined with little sleep, and really long days and everything else, and for, 20 some days straight, that you have to be able to find peace. And I have kind of this, basically like a kind of this meditation thing that I do. And my background's as a pastor originally. Right. And so I have a friend that's produced this program called Heart Physics, and it's got about these 25-minute just kind of like throw the headphones on and get into my quiet zone. And there'd be a couple times on set where I would just find a spot and just get into that and, come back out refreshed and ready to go.
Sure.
And, so you just have to learn to really adapt to that whole process. But having a guy like Edgar next to me doing that really made it a lot of fun and a great learning experience for me as well. I mean, we have to constantly learn.
Yeah, definitely. Well, awesome, guys. And kind of just to wrap things up, is there any plugs that you guys want to throw out there?
Yeah, so November 7th, the film releases. So depending on when you release this interview, it's going to be at least the week of. So go get the movie. You can pre-order at Walmart if you're seeing this ahead of time. But it's available at Walmart. It's going to be available on a bunch of other platforms and VOD platforms. So platforms, I will say, like Netflix, Redbox, Amazon, Hulu. Look for it at those locations. Not able to say kind of specifically where that lands, but that's kind of the model. So we're still waiting on official word to be able to tell you that with SP releasing and Sony, and maybe we can have that in the show notes when this releases for some of the specific outlets that we'll know of. You can follow our Facebook page for Miles Media, also for Crowning Jules. So we'd love to keep up with you. I'm also on kind of all the usual platforms of Instagram and Twitter at either at Lucas Miles or at Mr. Mr. Lucas Miles on Instagram. So love to keep up. We'd love to hear what people think about the film. And, if you're sitting at home and I got a great idea for a movie, or I got a great script and I got some investors that want to get behind this thing and make it happen, hey, Miles Media would always like to talk to you.
There you go. And all the links will be down in the description so you guys can find all their stuff. Edgar, did you have anything you wanted to toss out there?
No, I'm just fine. I have a Facebook page as well under my name, Edgar Struble, and there'll be pretty much the same stuff that's on the Crowning Jules website. They're coming. We're all going to kind of use our social media to promote this as much as we can. Yeah.
Awesome.
Christian, you've been to one of these before, but we periodically will do what we call entertainment summits, just Miles Media entertainment summits, and so we're talking about doing another one here soon. And so people that have an interest in learning how to produce or learning how to get more involved in the industry or increase their platform a little bit, we'll be announcing some dates for that soon. And so I've done kind of a mini one of those in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. We've done these in Indiana and kind of Michigan market. So looking to expand that a little bit more, and love working with people at all different levels. So happy to interact.
Yeah, and I highly recommend. And will you have that on where will you have the information for that?
Yeah, we'll
put it out
there.
On
Facebook page, and then probably also my Twitter account.
Well, that'll all be in the link down below. And yes, I definitely recommend that anybody who's interested in wanting to be in the filmmaking business to definitely go check it out. I had a great time when I went to yours. I got to talk to these two great guys here. I got to poke their brains a little bit. And it's definitely gives you a lot of different angles. That's how it was set up the last time. You got to really got to get a taste of everything there. So yeah, definitely check these guys' stuff out. And we will see you in the next episode, where we will be having Lucas on to talk to us about his co-directing role in the film. So we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Christian.
Thanks.